Tyler Grant stood barefoot on his driveway, coffee steaming in one hand, disbelief in the other. 3 empty curb spaces stared back at him like open mouths. His Camaro, gone. His wife's SUV, gone. His branded company truck, gone. All towed. Sometime during the night without warning. No phone call, no citation. Just long, curling black skid marks that ended in silence. His neighborhood, Millstone Ridge, had always had a smug air about it. The kind of place with plastic flamingos banned by charter, where grass height was monitored like a national security threat. He hadn't even unpacked all his boxes yet, and already the HOA was flexing. A jogger passed by, earbuds in. Tyler forced a smile, then turned back toward his house, his brain already running logistics. He placed the mug on the hood of his wife's other car, thankfully parked in the garage, and pulled out his phone. First, he opened the Titan Haul and Secure app. Within seconds, he tapped into the vehicle tracking system. All 3 cars showed, as impounded at the West Point yard. His yard. He chuckled under his breath. Of course they were. He walked back inside and dialed the front desk. Hey, Chelsea, it's Tyler. No, don't freak. Yeah, they towed my cars last night. A pause. Chelsea's voice lowered to a whisper. What? Your cars? Boss? They were listed as non-compliant. HOA request from Millstone Ridge. Oh, I know. Tyler leaned against the granite counter, smiling. Did they sign the tow authorization themselves? Yup. President Greg Carlin submitted it digitally 2 days ago. Sent it straight through. I double-checked. Your name wasn't flagged. Perfect, Tyler said, sipping the last of his coffee. Don't reverse anything. Don't comp the storage. Treat it by the book like any other job. Chelsea hesitated. Seriously? Dead serious. I'm going to let this play out, because this wasn't about fees or cars. This was about respect. And the HOA had no idea they'd just picked a fight with the man holding the keys to the city's entire towing infrastructure. Tyler headed to the garage. His backup vehicle, a matte black Escalade, purred to life. He slid behind the wheel, eyes gleaming with something dangerous. Not anger. Strategy. Millstone Ridge had emailed a notice a few weeks back about parking reassessments, buried in a flood of other bureaucratic nonsense. He remembered the PDF vaguely, 2 pages about optimizing road space, reducing clutter, and enforcing nighttime curb policies. But nowhere did it mention immediate towing without warning. The problem wasn't the rule. It was the way they used it like a club, against residents who hadn't even settled in. He drove through the neighborhood slowly, watching. Every street was lined with cars. Some straddled yellow lines, others partially blocked driveways. And yet his were the ones targeted. 3 vehicles, same house, gone on the same night? That wasn't enforcement. That was a message. Too bad they didn't know who they were messaging. He parked by the community board on the corner of Rose Hill and Willow. The HOA's bulletin was updated just last night. Effective immediately. No overnight street parking, enforced by Titan Haul and Secure. Tyler stared at the flyer, heart thumping with disbelief and dark amusement. They'd literally posted his company name as the new enforcer. They'd called the Tiger, unaware it had already lived in the neighborhood all along. He plucked the flyer off the corkboard, folded it carefully, and slid it into his glove box. Then he whispered to no one in particular, "You just hired the devil to police your sins." Tyler drove home with the flyer tucked safely in his glove box, a slow smile curling across his lips. No one in Millstone Ridge had a clue that the company towing their cars belonged to him. Not the HOA board, not the angry neighbors, not even Chelsea at the dispatch office, who had been his voice of calm for years. He pulled into his driveway and stepped out, sunlight hitting the glossy paint of his restored Camaro parked safely inside the garage. The absence of the other vehicles felt like a small war won, a subtle reminder that control was an illusion when you didn't know who was pulling the strings. Inside, Tyler sat at his cluttered desk, surrounded by multiple monitors displaying real-time tracking of his entire fleet across the county. Titan Haul and Secure was no small-time operation. It was a sprawling web of subsidiaries, some barely known even within the company. Millstone Ridge had contracted Titan Haul and Secure directly, but Tyler's ownership was hidden behind layers of LLCs and trusts. That anonymity was his greatest weapon. He pulled up the digital contract between Titan and the HOA, signed electronically by Greg Carlin, the HOA president, 2 days before the towing spree. Tyler read the clauses with cold precision. The contract gave the HOA board the right to authorize immediate towing for any vehicle violating the new street parking rules. No warnings required, a perfect trap. Tyler had no intention of reversing the tow fees or apologizing to the HOA. They'd ignored proper channels, blindsiding residents with a harsh new rule that targeted his family's vehicles and anyone else who dared to park overnight on their own street. He opened a secure chat with his most trusted operations manager, Jenna. Millstone Ridge is our new target. Make sure the teams are following all rules to the letter. No shortcuts, no favors. I want logs on every tow, photo evidence, GPS tracking, time-stamped and secure. Within minutes, Jenna's reply popped up. Understood. We'll treat it like a high-profile job, legal precision, and no exceptions. Tyler leaned back, fingers steepled. The game was on. He glanced at his phone again, hesitating before dialing a number he hadn't called in months. Hey, Marcus, it's Tyler, a gruff voice answered. Tyler? Long time. What's up? Need a favor? I'm going undercover. For a bit. I want all data from Millstone Ridge, contracts, incident reports, internal HOA emails, meeting minutes. Everything you can get. Discreetly. There was a pause. Are you serious? Dead serious. We're about to teach them a lesson. Marcus chuckled darkly. Got it. I'll dig in. Tyler hung up and opened a private folder on his laptop labeled Millstone. He copied the new contract, redacted personal info from the HOA emails, and scrolled through the complaint logs. Residents were already furious, but the board stayed, silent, too busy tightening their grip. He thought about Greg Carlin, the man who'd pushed the rule through unilaterally. Greg had a reputation for being power-hungry and slippery. Rumor had it his daughter was taking driving lessons every night on the neighborhood streets, and he wanted them clear for practice. Tyler's blood boiled at the thought. If Greg thought he could bully the community by hiding behind parking rules and towing fees, he was about to learn that the hunter was also the hunted. Tyler grabbed his jacket and slipped on his sunglasses. Tonight, he wasn't just a homeowner. He was an invisible force, the ghost owner of the company that held Millstone Ridge's fate in its hands. His phone buzzed again, a message from Jenna. First tow logs from last night uploaded. Photos show 3 cars from your address towed. Between midnight and 3 a.m. HOA authorization valid. No complaints filed yet. Tyler smiled. Perfect. He turned off the lights and walked outside. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, too peaceful. But beneath the surface, the tension was building like a coiled spring, and Tyler was ready to pull the trigger. The next HOA meeting was held in the modest community center on a chilly Thursday evening. The room buzzed with quiet murmurs, whispers about the sudden towing blitz, and a palpable undercurrent of frustration. Residents packed the chairs, clutching, petitions and furious emails printed in crumpled piles. Tyler sat near the back, his arms folded, eyes scanning every face. No one recognized him as the owner of the towing company. To them, he was just another angry neighbor who'd lost 3 cars overnight. But inside, he was far from angry. He was calculating. At the front, Greg Carlin adjusted his tie and cleared his throat. Good evening, everyone. I'm aware of the recent complaints about the parking enforcement. Let me assure you, the board acted within its rights. The new policy was necessary to keep our streets clear and safe. A woman in the third row raised her hand. "But we didn't get any warnings, and they towed my elderly mother's car while she was at the hospital." Greg waved it off. "Rules are rules." Tyler watched Greg closely. The man was all bluff and bravado, but Tyler noticed something else. A subtle disregard for the rules. He enforced so strictly on the residents. As Greg droned on about bylaws and safety, Tyler's eyes drifted to the windows, where Greg's sleek black BMW was parked half on the sidewalk, its tires resting against freshly trimmed hedges. A small smirk tugged at Tyler's lips. Selective enforcement, that was the key. After the meeting, Tyler quietly approached a few neighbors. "Has anyone noticed that the board members often park where they please? Sidewalks, lawns, even fire lanes?" Murmurs of agreement spread. One man shook his head. "Greg's daughter parks her convertible right in front of the community center every day. Never a ticket." Tyler's plan began to form with sharper edges. He wasn't just going to fight the rule. He was going to expose the hypocrisy behind it. Over the next few days, Tyler coordinated with Jenna to tighten enforcement, but only on the board members and their favorites. Every violation would be logged with irrefutable evidence, photos, GPS data, timestamps. If Greg parked illegally, his car would be the first towed. Tyler's crews followed the letter of the law with ruthless precision, sparing no one on the board from their own policies. Word spread quickly. The once smug and untouchable HOA leaders were suddenly at the mercy of the very rules they had imposed without mercy. Neighborhood gossip turned to outrage, then to panic. Greg called Tyler's office, voice sharp and accusatory. "Who authorized this?" "This is harassment," Tyler answered calmly. "Your contract, your rules. We're simply doing our job." Greg's silence on the other end spoke volumes. The power dynamics in Millstone Ridge began to shift. One afternoon, Tyler received an anonymous tip. Greg was planning a secret emergency meeting to rescind the towing contract and replace Titan Hall and Secure with another company. Tyler smiled. That move would only deepen the cracks he was already exploiting. When the emergency meeting was announced, Tyler attended again. This time not just as a resident, but as the invisible force behind the towing company. He sat quietly, while Greg and the board tried to spin a narrative about miscommunication and unforeseen consequences. But Tyler had already leaked detailed logs to several influential neighbors, showing how selectively and unfairly the rules had been applied. When Greg demanded that the new company take over immediately, Tyler stood. "Before you make that decision," Tyler said, voice steady, "there are a few things you should know." The room fell silent. Tyler's eyes met Greg's, calm but unyielding. "I own Titan Hall and Secure." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Greg's face paled, confusion flashing in his eyes. Tyler continued, "For months, I've watched as you and this board twisted rules to protect yourselves while punishing the rest of us. You've abused your power, and you've done it without knowing who you were dealing with." The atmosphere thickened with tension. Tyler dropped a USB drive on the table, filled with evidence, contract irregularities, unauthorized signatures, selective towing logs, and emails revealing the board's biased enforcement. "I suggest you review this carefully before you make your next move." As Tyler turned to leave, whispers followed him. The power behind the clipboard had just become the power behind the towing trucks. The morning after Tyler's stunning revelation, the atmosphere in Millstone Ridge felt charged, like the calm before a storm. Residents exchanged whispered rumors over coffee, their eyes flicking toward the looming community center where the HOA board met. Tyler wasn't just watching from the sidelines anymore. He was inside the game, pulling strings no one else could see. That day, the first precision strike unfolded. At dawn, a team from Titan Hall and Secure rolled silently into the neighborhood. Their mission was surgical and crystal clear: Enforce the rules only on the HOA board members and their inner circle, no exceptions. Greg Carlin's black Mercedes, parked glaringly against the no parking signs near the clubhouse, was the first target. Photos snapped automatically as the tow truck hooked the Mercedes, the driver's voice calm but firm over the radio. Vehicle is in violation of community parking rules. Authorized tow. By the time the Mercedes vanished down the street, a buzz erupted in the neighborhood group chats. Did Greg's car get towed? No way. He's the HOA president. Within hours, other board members' vehicles disappeared one by one. The treasurer's F-150 with tires resting on the grass, the secretary's sedan blocking a fire lane, the landscaping contractor's truck parked in a handicapped spot without a permit. Tyler watched the live video feeds from his office, the glow of multiple screens lighting his face. Each tow was flawless, time-stamped, logged, and executed under the strict letter of the law. No room for the board to argue favoritism or negligence. A message popped up from Jenna. Board members are panicking. Greg is demanding a meeting. With you ASAP. Tyler smiled and typed back, "Let's hear what he has to say." That afternoon, Greg stormed into Tyler's office, his usual composure shattered. His eyes darted nervously between the rows of tow trucks parked outside, all bearing the Titan logo. "This has to stop," Greg snapped. "You're ruining the neighborhood." Tyler leaned forward, calm and controlled. "You set the rules, Greg. You signed the contract. These vehicles were all in violation." Greg's voice dropped. "You're targeting me. This is personal." Tyler shook his head slowly. "No, this is justice. You and your board exempt yourselves from rules while punishing others. That ends today." Greg clenched his fists, trying to regain control. "You don't understand HOA politics. People will turn against you." Tyler's grin was slow and deliberate. "Let them. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make things right." Greg's face twisted with frustration. "You'll regret this." That night, Tyler sat in his home office reviewing neighborhood complaints flooding in. For once, the voices of the residents weren't angry. They were relieved, even hopeful. A local reporter had picked up the story and called Jenna for an interview, curious about the sudden shift in HOA enforcement. Tyler knew the board's power was cracking, but the game wasn't over. Behind the scenes, he was already preparing for the next phase because the board wouldn't back down quietly. They would fight, and Tyler had just lit the fuse. The following days in Millstone Ridge were like a powder keg waiting to explode. Residents whispered behind closed doors, and online forums lit up with heated debates. But something new was stirring. A silent rebellion against the HOA board's authority. Tyler watched it all unfold from the sidelines, or so everyone thought. Behind his calm exterior, his mind raced with plans. The neighborhood had been simmering with resentment for months, but the board's reckless towing had ignited the spark. Now, it was only a matter of time before that spark became a flame. Late one evening, Tyler attended a small gathering of concerned neighbors in a dimly lit basement. The room buzzed with nervous energy and hushed conversations. The faces were tired but determined, people who wanted change but feared the board's reach. "We have to stand together," a middle-aged woman urged. "They can't keep running this place like a dictatorship." Tyler nodded, his voice low but firm. "The board's power depends on fear and silence. When enough voices rise, that power crumbles." A man near the back, eyes wary, asked, "But what can we do?" "They control the rules, the enforcement, everything." Tyler smiled faintly. "They don't control everything, not if we're smart." Over the next week, a coordinated effort took shape. Residents began documenting every questionable HOA decision, collecting evidence of favoritism, mismanagement, and even financial irregularities. Secret meetings were held in homes and parks. Flyers calling for transparency and accountability appeared on doorsteps, unsigned but unmistakably inspired. Tyler was the ghost behind the movement, using his access and resources to amplify the residents' voices without exposing himself. At the same time, Titan Hall and Secure maintained its strict enforcement, but only on the board and their allies. The sight of luxury cars being towed sent a powerful message. No one was above the... One night, Tyler received an encrypted message from Jenna. Greg's team is planning a smear campaign. They want to accuse you of abusing your position. Tyler's jaw tightened. Let them try. Within days, anonymous flyers appeared around Millstone Ridge, accusing Titan Hall and Secure, and by extension Tyler, of overreach and harassment. The flyers used fake quotes and doctored photos, but the message was clear. The board was fighting back with everything they had. At the next HOA meeting, tensions boiled over. Greg and his supporters launched a verbal assault on the towing company, accusing it of bullying and extortion. But the room was no longer in their grip. Residents stood up, armed with facts, photos, and first-hand stories of the board's abuses. Tyler watched from the back, satisfaction simmering beneath his calm. The board's narrative was crumbling. The silent rebellion was now loud and undeniable. As the meeting ended in chaos, Greg's face was pale and defeated. Tyler knew this was just the beginning. The real battle for control and for the soul of Millstone Ridge was far from over, and Tyler was ready. The days that followed the explosive HOA meeting felt like walking on a knife's edge. The neighborhood was fractured, split between loyalists, defending Greg Carlin and those energized by the growing rebellion. But Tyler moved with the patience of a chess master, several moves ahead of everyone else. Behind the calm veneer of his home office, screens flickered with streams of data, emails intercepted, contract clauses dissected, financial records unearthed. Tyler had uncovered troubling discrepancies. The HOA's funds were mysteriously shrinking, siphoned into offshore accounts linked to shadowy shell companies. Greg and several board members were entangled in a web far darker than anyone suspected. Tyler called Jenna into a private video call. "We're sitting on a gold mine. This isn't just about parking enforcement anymore. We have real leverage." Jenna nodded, her expression tight. "If this leaks, it could bring the whole board down." "Exactly. But we have to be surgical. One wrong move and they'll silence us with lawsuits or smear campaigns." They agreed on a plan. Leak the financial evidence to a trusted investigative reporter with a reputation for exposing corruption, while simultaneously strengthening enforcement on the HOA's illicit activities. Meanwhile, Tyler ramped up Titans, surveillance on the board's properties, not just their cars. Unmarked vans monitored suspicious deliveries, late-night meetings, and clandestine cash exchanges. Every detail was logged and cross-referenced. One afternoon, as Tyler reviewed footage, his phone buzzed with an alert. Greg's daughter was caught parking illegally again, this time blocking a fire hydrant. Without hesitation, Tyler authorized a tow. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire. The untouchable daughter, subject to the same rules as everyone else. The board's desperation grew palpable. They reached out to Tyler with desperate pleas and veiled threats, offering bribes and demanding ceasefire. Tyler refused, unwavering. Then came the day the reporter's expose dropped online, a scathing, meticulously documented report revealing financial misdeeds, conflicts of interest, and abuse of power. The article painted Greg and his closest allies as corrupt, self-serving, and unfit to govern. Public outcry exploded. Millstone Ridge's residents demanded immediate resignations and a full investigation. Greg's empire was crumbling, his once ironclad grip now a fragile facade. Tyler watched the chaos unfold, satisfied but alert. The battle was far from over, but he'd just delivered the first devastating checkmate. As the dust settled, a new message appeared in Tyler's inbox. Anonymous, encrypted. "You're good, but the game's bigger than you think. Watch your back." Tyler's eyes narrowed, This war was no longer just about an HOA. It had just become something much darker. Tyler hadn't slept well in days. The anonymous warning message echoed in his mind, a sinister reminder that the fight was far from over. Someone was watching, someone with power and reach beyond Millstone Ridge's borders. He glanced over his shoulder as he pulled into the driveway, a creeping sense of unease settling over him. His sleek Camaro gleamed under the porch light, a silent witness to the battle waging both outside and within. Inside, Jenna was already waiting, her face drawn but resolute. "We got another message," she said quietly, sliding her tablet across the desk. Tyler swiped it open. "Step carefully, Tyler. You're stirring up more than HOA dirt. We're bigger than you realize. Back off, or you'll regret it." Tyler's jaw tightened. The tone was unmistakable. This wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. "Who could this be?" Jenna asked. Tyler shook his head. "Someone who's been hiding in the shadows, pulling strings we didn't see." His mind raced back to the layers of shell companies, offshore accounts, and the board's shady financial ties. Could there be a deeper network? A shadow organization? The thought sent a cold chill down his spine. He decided it was time for a face-to-face. Later that evening, Tyler met with an old contact from his towing company's early days, Marcus, a grizzled investigator with a knack for uncovering hidden enemies. "Sounds like you've poked a hornet's nest," Marcus said, lighting a cigarette. "This isn't just local politics. You're dealing with a much bigger beast." Tyler nodded. "I want to know who's behind this. Whoever it is, they've got money, power, and a lot to lose." Marcus leaned in. "I'll dig. But be careful. Tyler, when the shadows move, they don't just threaten, they destroy." Days passed in a blur of surveillance and clandestine meetings. Tyler noticed his car had been followed twice, once by a nondescript black SUV, another time by a silver, Sedan with tinted windows. Each time he shook the tail, but the message was clear. He was under watch. One night, returning from a late run to the office, Tyler's driveway was blocked by a rusty pickup truck. Two men stepped out, their faces obscured by baseball caps. "Tyler," one called, voice low and threatening. "Stop stirring the pot. Walk away before it gets ugly." Tyler stood firm. "I'm not afraid of shadows." The men exchanged glances, then backed off, but Tyler knew this was a warning. That same night, Jenna's home security cameras captured an unknown figure lingering near her front door. When she called Tyler, her voice was tight with fear. "They're not just after you anymore." Tyler's resolve hardened. This was no longer just about parking rules or HOA politics. It was a war against unseen enemies, against the shadows lurking behind the curtain. Tyler stared out his window, the streetlights, casting long, ominous shadows. The road ahead was uncertain and dangerous, but one thing was clear. He wasn't backing down. The night was thick with tension as Tyler sat alone in his office, the glow of multiple monitors casting sharp shadows on his face. Every alert, every surveillance feed, every whispered warning now pointed toward a single truth. The shadowy forces behind the HOA corruption were ready to make their final move. Tyler's phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. "We found something. Meet me at the warehouse." Minutes later, he arrived at an old industrial warehouse on the edge of town. Jenna was waiting, her eyes scanning the rows of vehicles and crates scattered inside. "We traced the money," she said, pulling out a file. "The shell companies lead to a regional crime syndicate. They've been laundering money through the HOA to cover illegal operations, drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, you name it." Tyler's breath caught. The stakes were higher than he'd imagined. "They're desperate to keep control," Jenna added, "which means we're in serious danger." Suddenly, the warehouse doors slammed shut. Lights flickered, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed around them. "Welcome, Tyler," a cold voice called out. From the shadows emerged a tall figure, Michael Mick Donnelly, the syndicate's local enforcer, notorious for ruthless tactics. "You've caused quite a mess," Mick sneered. towing luxury cars, exposing our operations, rallying the neighborhood. You're a thorn in our side. Tyler stood his ground. I'm just a homeowner who won't let criminals run his community. Mick laughed darkly. You think you're smart? This is bigger than you, but I'll make you an offer. Drop the investigation, walk away, and maybe you live. Before Tyler could respond, Jenna quietly pressed a button on her phone. Suddenly, the warehouse flooded with bright floodlights and the sound of sirens blaring in the distance. Outside, police cars surrounded the building. Mick's eyes widened. How? Tyler smiled grimly. We didn't do this alone. In the weeks leading up to this moment, Tyler and Jenna had secretly collaborated with law enforcement, gathering enough evidence for a coordinated raid. As officers stormed the warehouse, Mick tried to flee but was quickly apprehended. The syndicate's grip on Millstone Ridge shattered like glass. Back at the community center, the HOA board was dissolved amid public outrage. New, transparent leadership took charge, pledging to rebuild trust. Tyler watched from the sidelines, the weight of the battle lifting. But the night's final surprise came when Jenna handed him a sealed envelope. Inside were documents revealing that Tyler himself had unknowingly been named in one of the shell companies, an old business deal gone wrong, now twisted into a weapon against him. The board's initial pushback, the smears, the threats, they had almost destroyed him. Tyler exhaled slowly. He had won the battle for Millstone Ridge, but the war for his own name was just beginning.